powerful and greatest magician in all of Equestria. There is no feat of magic I cannot perform. There is no skill or talent my magic cannot surpass. Truly, all are honored to stand in the presence of the great and powerful Trixie. My legendary tales have spread across all of Equestria. There is none who don't know my name. There is none who don't love the great and powerful Trixie. Certainly you have heard how, on one of my many travels, I came to the small hick town of Ponyville that wouldn't even be on the map if not for the inexplicably regular visits by Princess Celestia. How, after performing my magic show and proving my greatness and power once again, two fools didn't wish to take one of my stories on face value and put the great and powerful Trixie to the test, and she was publicly humiliated. I lost everything I owned in one night and had to flee the small no-face town to save what little face I had left. The great and powerful Trixie finds herself now in self-imposed exile, seeking to increase her already great power to take back her place as the greatest user of magic in Equestria. It has nothing to do with being laughed off stage at every burg that Trixie attempted to perform a show at afterwards. Trixie did not break down in tears after her last show, and with jeering and mocking nays from the crowd before it even started. No, she didn't. No, the great and powerful Trixie is not crying now from the memory. Don't be absurd. How did the great and powerful Trixie start down her path and discover her cutie mark? It was obvious from the start what Trixie's destiny would be. And no, don't. Please don't make Trixie. Don't make me remember.
I don't understand, Trixie.
Asked the magical school's counselor, a gray pony with a black mane and a lightning bolt cutie mark wearing a scarf.
You're upset over your performance review? I've seen your performance review, little filly. What are you upset about?
My parents had practically shoved me into his office after I had broken down crying after reading my teacher's reviews the first time. I didn't need to read my own review again to repeat it now. It was very easy to memorize. Transmutation, average. Illusion, average. Telekinesis, average. Conjuring, average. Weather control, average. Mental suggestion, average.
That just means you have lots of potential.
That's a nice way to say blank flank. I snapped back. The fact I was one was besides the point. Or maybe it was the point. My being a late bloomer did not go unobserved by my classmates.
Trixie, you should be proud. Most unicorns excel in one area of magic and are almost helpless in others. Most unicorns can't even do weather control. There isn't a field in the books you aren't capable in. The last time I saw a record like this was that one filly who's about your age in Canterlot.
As if I cared about something like that. I'm not spectacular in any of them. I had been trying to stand out in my classes since the first day, but no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, there was some pony doing it better. I thought when my parents finally scraped together the money so I could attend a fully blown school of magic that I'd finally be noticed. I had been chosen, where I didn't have 4 sisters and 2 brothers to compete for attention with. They picked me. Me! Not any of my siblings, but me. But it was the same story, only multiplied by 100. It didn't help that back home my parents had all the imagination of toadstools when it came to names. Mixie, Pixie, Nixie, Lexi. I was just another face in the herd. The counselor spoke in a calm, kind voice.
You know the old saying, a pony of all trades but master of none? Well, the full saying goes, a pony of all trades but master of none is often quite better than master of one.
I didn't hear him. All that mattered was no matter what class of magic I choose, I'd be just another face in the crowd. Might as well not exist. Unless I wasn't in the crowd. I ran away to try and join the circus. That afternoon, I got about 10 city blocks and caught that same afternoon. Got sent to the counselor again and spent 2 weeks confined to my room, which of course I shared with my siblings. Then I met Master, who was a substitute teaching one time, an old magician pony who wanted to pass on his tricks. The class loved the tricks he threw into his stuffy mundane lessons. He knew how to get attention. I jumped at the chance. I wouldn't have taken no for an answer, but he accepted me as an apprentice readily. I originally wanted for my stage name, the one and only Trixie, but Master felt it lacked impact and convinced me to go with the great and powerful Trixie. I cannot say in the least it was bad advice. My first practice show at school didn't get the crowd of fillies and colts I wanted, but my next one did, from sheer word of mouth. The moment the crowd cheered at my first pyrotechnics, I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life, and I felt the tingle on my face. Then, for the first time, I said those magic words that gave such a sweet, warm feeling in the pit of my stomach. Anything you can do, I can do better. I never realized how satisfying and how comforting those words would sound until I finally said them. Finally, no longer just an interchangeable horseshoe, the one and only Trixie, the great and powerful Trixie. The crowd ate it up as I tore down the top students with their own signature magic tricks. One unicorn's specialty was fire magic. Red coat and black mane with a blue flame on her flank actually shouted, "I challenge you to a game of catch the fireball." And she shot it right at me with the full intention of burning off my new cutie mark. The crowd laughed and stomped their hooves as I used my telekinesis to make it chase her instead. People love seeing those who are better than they were get pulled down to their level, and I was happy to oblige this basic need in my show. I made myself a costume based on my master's, with a little help from my mother, but with a more eye-catching color scheme than my master's grays and whites. Later, I read up somewhere that there were members of high society that spoke in third person. Well, if it was good enough for upper-crust snobs, then it was good enough for the great and powerful Trixie, and the crowds loved that too. And meanwhile, I still found myself invisible the moment the spotlight went out. I had no intention of staying in Hoofington knowing that. Thank you for listening to my story. The great and powerful Trixie does not share herself with just anyone.
Oh, listening to Pony's thoughts has been a habit of mine lately.
So said the floating magic wand with blue twinkles behind it, just like Trixie's cutie mark. It told me, Trixie, how it was my friend, my ally, a force of magic that only sought out the best and brightest and the most worthy. It wished to aid the great and powerful Trixie by giving her the greatest magic tricks she could hope to perform. Yes, finally, a break. After having her life stolen from her, the great and powerful Trixie will be on top where she belongs. I can't wait to see that purple pony's face. How dare the Twilight Sparkle I imagine look at me with concern and worry? How dare she ask me if this is what I really want? Of course it was what I really want. Oh, just go away. Trixie does not care for your sad eyes. The strange visitor, who is a giant version of my cutie mark, gives me a couple of scrolls, promising that any one of these spells will be the grandest displays of magic imaginable. As I read the almost swirling letters, I find that I am memorizing them with ease. They're rather simple, but the results seem rather elusive. But the swirling pattern just draws my attention in, almost like they're moving. A pony wearing a tuxedo gallops into the rundown apartment I've been staying at and shakes me.
Miss Great and Powerful Trixie, what are you doing? You're on in 20 seconds.
Huh? I don't have any shows arranged. I haven't for months. Ha! Another worthy gift from my benefactor. Normally, Trixie would never lower herself by accepting the kindness of strangers. But if this strange visitor was really some abstract embodiment of herself, then it wasn't really help from others, was it? I'm in full costume before I even know it. I rush out the door, and instead of the hallway of the shoddy apartment complex I live in, I find myself center stage in a theater. The great and powerful Trixie gets into her act with flourish and zeal. Trixie can't remember the last time she had a crowd this big. All of them looking at her, looking at her. She was the reason they were here. They had come for her. Trixie begins her act with her flashy fireworks display, getting the oohs and ahs Trixie only deserves, which quickly falls into stunned silence at her display of pure pyrotechnic power. Then Trixie shows off her spectacular illusions and beautiful imagery, while delving into her fantastic tales of daring do that swoon the crowd to no end. In no time at all, she came to her climax. Biggest spell ever? One of the rules her master had taught her was never do a trick you hadn't rehearsed first. But the more Trixie thought about it, the less she could resist. The more I want to see it, the more I have to see it now. The words still swirling in my head as I think about them, I cast my benefactor's spell. It was the wildest, most fantastic display of lights and colors I could have ever imagined. The sun and moon rose together, stars swirled into a living ocean, colors of every shade clashed against each other in a symphony. Constellations came alive, all of them dancing to Trixie's whim. The sun and moon eclipsed. A galaxy spiraled around Trixie, sparkling 1,000 colors. Audience was blasted by all-encompassing reverberations that would knock any pony off their hooves. And with the adrenaline still running high, it was over. I did it! I did it! I panted, joy tingling inside me. No one clapped or stomped. No one smiled or frowned. They stared through me with casual indifference.
Yeah, I think I have one right here.
Does any pony have a pen?
A few yawned. A couple began talking about yesterday's hoofball game. They simply got up from their seats and began to calmly hoof away. I stared in shock. Heckling I was used to, cheering I lived for, mockery I'd been forced to endure, but no reaction at all? Like I didn't exist? Wait! I shouted. No one even looked back at me. They didn't even snigger. They might as well have not heard me. They didn't stop. They all left. They didn't even turn back to look at me. No, don't you dare turn your flanks on the great and powerful Trixie! Not even a fiery retort, which I would have welcomed. I galloped in front of the two ponies last to leave, a finely dressed unicorn stallion and earth pony mare. They bumped right into me like I was an invisible wall and looked about in confusion for a bit before I began. How dare you! You should feel honored to witness the grandeur of a performance by the great and powerful Trixie. How dare you treat her like some cheap background act? My arcane performances are not some sideshow. The unicorn didn't look intimidated at all and acted like he was trying to explain something to a tree.
Well, yeah, I guess it was really good for magic, I guess. It's not like anyone actually pays attention to that sort of thing anymore. Everyone's figured out already any unicorn can do magic. It was just a fad, watching magic for entertainment.
A fad? The mayor said.
We heard how you'd taken it to the next level, and thought we'd give the idea one last try. We've seen so many. It was better, but only in its own mundane, ordinary, average, run-of-the-mill way. It only serves to prove show magic is nothing special.
No, Trixie will never cry before an audience. Nothing special. The stallion said simply.
In the end, it's all just magic, and we all know any unicorn can do it. The fad for actually enjoying show mages is so 5 minutes ago.
I fell to my knees. I didn't stop them from leaving, but they still pushed me aside.
Oh, poor, great and powerful Trixie.
It was my benefactor. You! What went wrong?
What do you mean, what went wrong?
Your spell. Everyone just left. It was like they couldn't see me.
There's nothing wrong with the spell, Trixie. Maybe you just didn't do it right. After all, that above-average spell is impossible for just a mundane, average unicorn to properly perform. Twilight Sparkle did it without breaking a sweat. Everyone loved her when she did it. That spell just reflects the real skill and power of the user. How people react to it is exactly what the unicorn is like. If they just walked away like you don't exist, maybe it's 'cause you don't. Maybe you don't really know magic after all. Maybe magic is just a little too hard for an average unicorn like you to handle.
No, shut up!
What kind of entertainer can't take a few simple, honest reviews, Trixie? Don't you know that's part of the show? Maybe you should go home to your family. Maybe your parents will have time for you, now that your brothers and sisters are all famous and known. Unlike you, of course. Of course, theirs isn't Trixie the daughter anymore. Just average Trixie, the magician who can't even do one spell right.
You be quiet! Quiet, I say! Trixie commands it! I feel tears begin to sting. The giant magic wand floated right in my face. It was looking into my eyes.
Oh, Trixie, maybe I'm being too hard. After all, there is one trick you've managed to do spectacularly. You're completely invisible. It comes very natural to you.
No! I cried. I had to get away, as far away as possible from the taunting voice. I ran outside. The ponies outside didn't even pause for me. They bumped into me like I wasn't there. I called out, and no one even turned their ears. Please, can't anyone aid Trixie? Anyone! No one, apparently. I grab a random pony in panic, and they just shrug me off, not even looking at my face. They keep bumping into me again and again from both sides, throwing me off balance. I fall into a heap. I grind my teeth. The memory of the swirling letters makes my head hurt. Were the words for the spell too much for an average unicorn to hold on to? Why do I keep trying? Just to keep failing? Why do I keep entertaining people who forget my name 5 minutes later? Why should I put so much effort into something that's gone in an instant? No one cared about just another unicorn. I hate theater. I hate being a magician. I hate magic! I scream at the top of my lungs, the tears coming freely now. No one even looks at me. Too busy with their own lives to have time for a stranger in need. No one ever does. People are only your friends when they feel like it. So what's the point of being friends at all? I hear some noises around me now. It doesn't matter. The average and invisible Trixie. I'm not anything special. I'm not anything. I'm nothing. Who cares for a unicorn that's the same as any other?
The ponies of Hoofington, kind more often than not ponies as they were, gathered around the poor pale blue unicorn with unnatural-looking muted gray colors. She couldn't seem to hear what they were saying, begging to be heard even when they asked what was wrong. It was like she couldn't even see them. Then she went catatonic. She went from not being able to hear them to not caring. A unicorn mare claiming to be the unicorn's sister screamed in her face in horror, trying to get the grayed-out unicorn's attention. High above, Discord shapeshifted into his true form. You weren't anything too special, my dear. Just the only other element of magic to be born through 1 or 2 unicorns a generation. I had to test out breaking the weaker, stunted, underdeveloped version before trying it out on the major deal. You have my thanks, my dear. Now I know how to crush the other element of magic that has actually realized her potential and the meaning behind her power. An element of magic that has no one to support it, with no bounds connected to it, is a glass doll waiting to be crushed.